it is usually going to come from a family member. It doesn't tend to happen in this traumatic way. They kind of like continue to build upon that trust. Now they want nothing to do with me. What did I do wrong? Sex and sexual activity and pleasure and orgasm is associated with, as soon as I start feeling that person's gonna leave me. Hey everybody, this is Sex Positivity Unfiltered. I'm Lyndsey Murray.
And I'm Denise Stratton.
And today we have a bonus episode for you. So for anyone who is listening and doesn't know, I am a certified sex therapist, and I do have a private practice in the DFW, Dallas area here in Texas. And this bonus episode is just Ask a Sex Therapist. So Denise, I'm going to let you ask me some questions. A couple of these are questions we've gotten from listeners, and so I'm excited that we get to answer a couple of these questions. So yeah, I'm ready to answer any questions you might have for me.
All right, sweet. Okay, so and just for future reference, guys, if you want your questions answered, please, you can ask us a question via our website, sexpositivityunfiltered.com. I believe there is a little place for them to ask a question.
There's a form where you can like put your name, email, ask a question, and we'll answer it.
Yeah, same thing. And then same thing, you can DM us on any of the social medias as well. We'll answer it as far as that goes too. So for future episodes, this is a little bonus segment that we plan on doing on a reoccurring basis. If you have a question you want it answered, you have basically free sex therapist for this little segment, one question at a time thing. So take advantage. Okay, so the first question: since being in a relationship and posting my girlfriend, I've noticed more and more single women like or reacting to anything I post. Why is that?
So he's just basically asking, now that I'm in a relationship, now that I'm posting things on my social media that show my girlfriend, I'm noticing more single women liking my stuff, basically.
Oh, yeah.
Is that what he's asking?
Yeah, that's exactly what he's asking. Why is that? Is it just flirting or just friendly chat or both? So he's unavailable and now he's getting more attention, basically. Okay.
Yeah, I think so. And I'm saying he because I think this was a friend of mine who asked this question. So I'm a little bit familiar with the question. So I know it's a he who's asking this. I mean, it could be a couple of things, right? Like on one end, I think in general for a lot of people, we want what we can't have. Like there is data out there that, men who are married and wear a wedding ring tend to get hit on more than if they don't have a wedding ring on. And so again, I say data. I don't know the numbers on that, but it doesn't surprise me that that's true, right? Because when you're unavailable, in a way, I think people can view you as being more attractive because somebody else wants you that bad that they're marrying you. So you must be desirable in some way. So therefore, I now desire you, or at least like am interested in you, right? So again, I can't speak to the women who are liking his stuff, but is there something there? Like he's now more interesting because he's in a relationship? Possibly, right? It could also be that, like he's mentioning, like single women are liking his content more now that he's posting his girlfriend. It could also be that they're just happy for him that he's in a relationship. It could be kind of like, I don't know, there really wasn't a lot of interaction with them before, but now that he is serious with the woman, they're happy for him, and liking his stuff is just a way to show that. So it can kind of be twofold, maybe. I don't know.
I mean, I see people like confidence, right? And whenever you're in a relationship, I could easily see you exuding a little bit more confidence and, a little bit more just in general happiness. And people are attracted to that. I could easily see that. But I do say, as far as like the being in a relationship and the whole wedding ring getting more attention when you have a wedding ring on versus when you don't, I've seen that happen before with friends of mine to where they get more attention, almost kind of like a job. It's easier to get a job when you already have a job than when you don't have a job.
Well, and that is primarily true for men who are, for example, walking with a wedding ring. Women don't experience the same.
Interesting.
I do not get hit on hardly ever now that I'm married. But when I wasn't wearing a wedding ring, yes. And if I have to assume why that is, I think it's because society views men as more available to cheat and women not wanting to accept any advances once they're in a committed relationship. I'm not saying that's true for everybody, but there is kind of that underlying assumption of like, even if a man is married, he's still going to be interested in other women. If a woman is serious with a man, she's only interested in her man and nobody else. So kind of back away. She's got the wedding ring on.
Interesting. I like that. Okay. Okay. So, I mean, I guess it could be friendly chat. It could also be flirting.
It could, like, to answer the question, it could be both. Hard to say.
All right. So question number 2. What issue relating to sex therapy do you see the most? Oh, that's a good question.
For me personally, because I work a lot with couples, and just so you know, every sex therapist is different. Some of them only see individuals, some of them only do trauma work. For me, because I see couples, my answer is going to be unique compared to maybe what another sex therapist would say. But for me in my practice, because I see couples primarily, the issue I see the most is desire discrepancy, where one partner has a higher libido than the other, but it has to be causing stress. And so, for example, if you're in a relationship and one of you has a higher libido than the other, but you're both okay with that and you make it work, there's not inherently an issue there. When desire discrepancy becomes an issue is when it causes stress. When one partner feels like, let's say the person with the higher libido feels like their needs aren't getting met, and the person with the lower desire feels like they're being pressured into sex all the time, is when it comes clashing head to head, and then they wind up in my office. And so when I'm seeing couples like this, we really are not just talking about sex. We're talking about connection. We're talking about other areas of intimacy. We're talking about what our needs and wants actually are. By the way, needing, when someone says like, well, I need sex with my partner, that is not a need. You are not going to die if you don't get it. It is a want. It's a valid want. It's a valid desire. I can work with you on that. But anytime they say it's a need, their partner immediately feels like, I have to magically increase my libido and desire you more for you to get your needs met. And that's a really unfair position to take. So then they feel pressured. And whenever that's the dynamic, on both ends, you're the cause of my quote unquote needs not being met. And then on the other side, you're the cause of me feeling pressured and worried all the time. We end up not really talking about sex. We're really talking more about the core of their relationship.
Interesting,
right?
really.
Why are y'all viewing each other this way, right? And I'm not saying this is true all the time. Like, I do have couples who come in and I'm able to give them some exercises to do, and they're back on track, and they're pretty like short-term cases sometimes. But a majority of the time, there's other cracks in the foundation of their relationship that they're not addressing, and sex is kind of like the Band-Aid. Well, if we just had more sex, things would be great. And I'm like, I don't think that's true because there's resentments, there's contempt, there's defensiveness, they're judging each other. There's like all these other aspects to their relationship that are drawing them further and further away from each other that we have to explore first. And also, too, it's not uncommon for there to be a lot of resentment from like past stuff that has happened between them that they haven't resolved, and now they're coming in, they're like, well, our issue is that we don't have enough sex. I'm getting frustrated about that. And I'm like, well, why don't they want to have sex with you? What's been going on? How are they viewing you? Right? Like, if I look at my partner and all I feel is contempt, I'm not going to really want to have sex with him. Do you get what I mean? So
yeah, that makes sense.
So I guess like long-winded answer, what I'm really saying is, people will classify it as low libido, and sometimes it is. But sometimes it's not necessarily low libido. It's, I don't desire sex with you as my spouse, and there's probably a ton of reasons for that. And that ends up being what we work on, right? Yeah. So it's very complex. It's very complex. And some of these cases, I've had couples come to see me for a year and a half, 2 years. Because they have that many layers to their case, but when they come in, the presenting issue is desire discrepancy.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So basically, just to answer the question, the issue you see the most is basically the fact that the libido, the balance is off.
Yes.
Like there's someone who's requesting more sex, someone who's just doesn't have the desire to provide more sex. I do a little transparency here. I have said in my past to previous partners that sex was something I needed, right? That sex was something like, I need this from you. If you can't provide this, I will go find this elsewhere. I know this sounds really bad. I was a really bad in my 20s, I was a really bad partner. I will be very transparent about that. I was horrible. Because I was very selfish. I only thought about myself. I didn't think about the other person, which is resonating a little bit. But so as far as in your opinion, professionally, you typically have it to where the person who has the higher libido kind of has to understand the other partner a little bit more.
Yeah, and I also try to get the lower libido partner to understand their partner more as well. I don't ever want it to be one-sided. It can feel one-sided if the partner with the lower libido feels a lot of pressure and a lot of like coercion, a lot of guilt or shaming. Those are areas where if partner with higher libido is projecting all that onto them, we really have to address that like straight away.
Okay.
But I do try to get to a point where they can understand their partner more too. If they desire sex a lot, right? What's that like for them, right? Like, what are they struggling with? Are they having a hard time holding back or handling what they say, or right? Like, I try to get them to both understand each other more. Yeah.
Okay. And I see a lot of, because one of the things in my community is lesbian bed death. That's kind of a huge stereotype that we have as far as my community goes. So is there a time frame where it does become problematic if it's causing them stress and they're becoming or is it problematic? Like, is there a time, an actual window where you're like, okay, the data shows, or professionally or statistically, a married couple should be engaging in this a little bit more if it's causing you stress?
I don't want to put a number to it because it's every couple so different, okay. Right? It's so hard to say because some couples, as an example, they might have sex once a month and they might be fine with that. If I did have to put a number to it, though, this is just my personal experience. I don't have a hard proof of this, but it tends to be when sex doesn't happen for 2 weeks.
Really interesting.
I don't know why that is, but that tends to be what I hear the most, right? Like, we had sex, now it's been over 2 weeks. Now I'm starting to feel worried that, like, we're not going to have sex. When are we going to have sex again? When's it going to happen again? 2 weeks seems to be...
That's actually shorter than I thought it was going to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so it is, like, imagine from the low libido partner's perspective how stressful that is. Because a lot of times the reason why they feel pressure is because they have the ticking clock in their head. Like, it's been 2 weeks. And so now I know that they're going to feel frustrated. I can already see them feeling frustrated. So I need to, like, get my stuff together and be ready to have sex so that they can be in a better mood. Because it's been 2 weeks. You know, it's a...
I'm in charge of releasing their frustration.
Yeah, pretty much. Yes. And so trying to figure out a way for them both to not be frustrated in a way that feels good for both of them is very complex.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Question number 3. How do you navigate sex positivity regarding those who have a history of sexual trauma?
I think that's a really good question and probably a complex answer that I probably won't address everything within there. But with someone that has sexual trauma, and it all depends on how we're defining sex positivity too, right? Because I do think, and I know we've talked about this in an earlier episode, sex positivity is kind of like pro-promiscuity, pro-casual sex, pro-wanting sex, all that kind of stuff, right? And so someone with trauma that maybe... And I'm not saying everyone with sexual trauma is like this, but as an example, if someone that has a history of sexual trauma really has a difficult time with sex and maybe doesn't want to have sex and is not ready for that and doesn't want to have a relationship where they're having sex all the time because they're still processing their trauma, sex positivity really has to be defined in a lens of meeting the person where they are. So when we're talking about someone with sexual trauma, it's being trauma informed when we're talking about it, right? Like doing everything we can to not re-traumatize the person and learning about what their triggers are, learning about what their preferences are, and as much or little details they want to share, and what does that mean for their sex life? What are they comfortable with? What are they not comfortable with? What are they comfortable trying? And it just takes a lot of kindness, compassion, curiosity about their experience and patience with them. And And like if you're in a relationship with someone that does have a history of sexual trauma, you do have to remember that you are in a position where you can easily re-traumatize them, even like unintentionally. You know, like it could be even the initiation of sex is like a trigger for them because they've got a lot to sort out. And that doesn't mean you're a bad person. It just means you're learning that about them and you're letting it be okay. And you're finding ways to be intimate with them in a non-sexual way if that's what they need right now. And so kind of like long answer shortened, patience, kindness, compassion, curiosity of their experience, meeting them where they are, and finding non-sexual ways of intimacy to build safety with them. Okay. Is kind of what I would say.
So would you recommend, because I've actually dated a couple of women who had some type of sexual trauma. It's unfortunate how common that is for women to have some type of sexual trauma or assault history in their background. Man, what was my question? When someone is, when your sexual trauma is basically preventing you from having a good time in the bedroom with a completely different partner, like is therapy the only option? Are there is there any way that the partner or even themselves can kind of support that? Because therapy is not always an option for everybody. It's a little expensive.
Yeah, of course. I don't think therapy is the only answer. I think it's about slowing way down to get back in touch with your body and figuring out what kind of touch is even pleasurable to you. And when I say slowing way down, I mean like paying attention to how the warm water feels on your skin in the shower. Is that pleasurable, right?
Okay.
Is there a certain type of texture that can be on my skin that feels really good?
Okay.
Am I okay being touched on my upper arm when my partner is next to me? Like very, very, I'm going to say simple for lack of a better word, but very simple ways to just get back in tune with your body, right? Because I think what happens is if someone does have sexual trauma and they're in an intimate relationship, a lot of touch will feel like this has to now lead to sex. Like if we're touching each other, I already know where this is going and now I'm kind of freaking out.
Yeah.
Versus, and I call it non-demand touch. What kind of touch do you enjoy? And it's just that. It's just the warm water on your skin. It's just the touch of the upper arm. It's just the,
So pretty much getting familiar back with your body.
Exactly. And you can build upon that, right? If you want to, if someone wants to, they don't have to want to do this, but they can build upon it if they start learning more about that. Maybe a little bit more intimate touch will be okay. And then maybe that will lead to sex one day, so it just takes that patience and kindness to yourself too, to just be where you are is like my biggest piece of advice. I can
see that. And when the intrusive thoughts creep in, because I feel like that would be or at least in my experience, that was the biggest hurdle to overcome, is there would be some position or some type of touch or something that would just trigger a memory for them, and then it stops right there. Everything's halted. Yeah. So just the slow build.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Exactly. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
All right, last question for you. So can you explain how childhood sexual trauma can impact us as adults? It's very actually similar to what we were just talking about.
Yeah. Ooh, that's a really good question. And every time I answer a question, I always like.
We need a full episode.
Yeah, there's never like a black and a white. Like I'm almost making a disclaimer here. If you ever meet a professional and all their answers are like it's either this or this, I wouldn't trust them because every person is unique. Their experience is unique. The outcome is unique, and there's not a one size fits all. But the answer I'm going to give is one that I think a lot of people don't think about, and so it's an interesting way to look at child sexual trauma. And so here's really what I'm wanting people to know is that, one, if you have sexual trauma from childhood, you were molested, let's say, it is usually going to come from a family member or a friend of the family. It's very rarely a stranger. I think there's kind of like this stranger danger out there, and we gotta like protect the kids. Unfortunately, it's 9 times out of 10, if not more, going to be someone that you and your family already knows.
Yeah.
And typically how it happens, it doesn't tend to happen in this traumatic way of like a very scary event for the child. There's usually grooming involved because it is someone, it's a family member, it's a friend of the family, someone that they trust, someone that their family trusts. They kind of like continue to build upon that trust, and that's the grooming before the touching starts.
Okay.
And the touching and the sexual acts will start, but when you're a kid, it's done with this person that you have grown to trust and that you know your parents trust. And even if you as a kid know like that something is weird, the molestation becomes part of your relationship with them.
Yeah, it's like, it becomes kind of it's supposed to be normalized.
It's supposed to be normalized. They make you as comfortable as possible. And then you also, it's like you can tell that they're enjoying it and you want to please them because they're this person that you have this really nice relationship with. But what ends up happening is, for example, you know, you as a kid in that situation, let's say you start enjoying it too.
Yeah.
There's going to come a point where the person who is molesting you is going to stop. Okay. And like Sean, do you know who Sean T is?
I don't.
He's like a fitness guy. I can't think of the program that, like the really famous program that he has, but anyways, the way because this is like his experience, like the way he explained it was, you know, he was molested as a child, and once he started enjoying it, his molester ended all activity because it wasn't just for him anymore.
Yeah. Which
is really fucked up. But it was like, oh, this kid that I'm molesting is also enjoying it. Like, we're done. We're not going to do the same. It's cut off.
Crazy.
And for a kid, they're not thinking of it as, oh, thank God the trauma's over. They're thinking of it as, here's this person who I really love, who I thought really loved me. Now they want nothing to do with me. What did I do wrong? I must have fucked up somehow. And that's the mentality that, one, is going to keep them from ever telling anyone because they're feeling shame, but in a way of like, I must have done something wrong, right? Yeah. For this to end. So then when they become adults, what happens is sex and sexual activity and pleasure and orgasm is associated with, as soon as I start feeling that person's going to leave me.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Right? That's the association. And so then when you are an adult, why would you want to be vulnerable with someone in the context of sex? You're probably going into sexual relationships knowing they're never going to really be there for me. They're going to leave eventually. So let's just keep this as casual as possible because I'm not going to let you hurt me. So I'll have fun. I'll have the pleasure. But like, you're just going to leave me one day because that's what they did. That's what everyone does. And so like when you hear about, you know, like sexual assault, sexual trauma survivors, especially when it happens when you're a child, like people kind of sexualizing themselves, they already have the association that they can experience pleasure, but they also have the association of abandonment. So I'm not going to get close enough to you because you're going to abandon me. So let's keep this like super casual.
Because it's what I'm used to.
Because what I'm used to. And so then, you know, when in those cases where an assault survivor might have many sexual partners, sometimes it's that attachment association that they had from like the grooming and all of that. So
interesting. We could do literally a whole episode on just this one topic.
Yeah, there's a lot to it. It's really sad, but for anyone listening, it usually doesn't look like this super scary event. It's usually experienced as abandonment eventually by the child.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, well, that's definitely an impact. All right. Yeah. So those are the 4 major questions. We had a couple more, but it's okay, guys. We're going to stop it right here just for the sake of time. But yeah, if you want your questions answered, if you have a good question that you think is worth sharing, please send it to us.
yeah, we'll do future bonus episodes with more listener questions, and we love answering those and providing additional information and insights. So we'll have more of these in the future.
And if you like this type of bonus episode or this type of content where Lyndsey does answer some questions, or maybe I've been trying to get Lyndsey to maybe do like not horror stories, but like, fun stories from her client experiences, things like that. Mm-hmm. If that's something that interests you, leave us a comment and let us know, because that is something that we look forward to doing if that's something that you guys want.
Absolutely. So thank you for tuning in and listening to our bonus episode, Asking a Sex Therapist Questions.
Hey.
And again, we are Sex Positivity Unfiltered. And remember to stay curious and fuck politeness.